3 weeks passed inside the warp bubble. For the crew of the Horizon, it felt like being in a dream. The lights in the ship dimmed to save power. People spoke in whispers, as if loud noises might break the fragile bubble of bent space around them. William Jackson, the ship's engineer, checked the warp drive every hour. The machine was not made for such a long journey. Small cracks had begun to show in its outer casing. "Will it get us home?" Captain Eleanor Wright asked him during the 3rd week. Will shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe if we don't stay too long at our destination. But I wouldn't bet on it." Eleanor nodded. They had known this might be a one-way trip when they started. 2 days until we reach the coordinates, Eleanor told the crew over the ship's speakers. "Everyone prepare for arrival and first contact." Dr. Alan Mercer had spent the journey learning more of the Valaran language. He played their message over and over, finding new words and patterns each time. "I think I can speak to them now," he told Captain Wright. "Not perfectly, but enough to say hello and explain why we're there." "Good," she said, "because they're going to have a lot of questions about the primitive aliens who showed up to rescue them." Dr. Kira Rodriguez, the ship's physicist, had been studying the pulsar that threatened the Valaran fleet. "The radiation levels will be extreme," she warned. "Our shields won't last long if we get too close." On the final day in warp, the crew gathered in the mess hall. Some wrote letters to family members back home in case they never returned. Others made jokes to hide their fear. A few sat quietly, lost in thought. Eleanor joined them, carrying a small box. "I brought something," she said, opening it to reveal a bottle of old whiskey. "I've been saving this for a special occasion. I think this qualifies." They passed the bottle around, each taking a small sip. "To first contact," Kira said when it was her turn. "To getting home someday," added Will. When the bottle reached Eleanor, she raised it high. "To answering the call," she said softly. The next morning, the ship shuddered hard. Alarms blared throughout the horizon. "Warp bubble collapsing," the computer announced. "Returning to normal space in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The stretched stars outside the windows snapped back to normal. The ship stopped shaking. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then someone gasped. Everyone rushed to the windows. Outside, floating in the blackness of space, was the most amazing sight any human had ever seen. Hundreds of massive ships, each one bigger than the largest city on Earth. They formed a pattern like a giant flower, with smaller ships on the outside and larger ones toward the center. "The Valaran fleet," Alan whispered. "We made it." But their wonder quickly turned to concern. Even from a distance, they could see the fleet was in trouble. Many ships showed damage on their outer hulls. Some drifted out of formation. And beyond, them casting an eerie light over everything, was the pulsar, a rapidly spinning star sending deadly radiation in pulses across space. "They're being pulled toward it," Kira said, checking her instruments. "Slowly but surely, just like their message said." Eleanor straightened her uniform. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves." For several minutes, nothing happened. The Horizon sent greeting messages in the Valaran language that Alan had prepared. No answer came. "Maybe they can't hear us," Peter Hall suggested. "Or maybe they don't recognize their own language the way Alan speaks it. Or maybe they're too busy trying not to die to answer strange messages," Will muttered. Finally, the communications screen lit up. The face that appeared made everyone on the bridge gasp again. The Valaran had skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, changing colors like oil on water. Its eyes were large and completely black, with no whites or visible pupils. Instead of hair, delicate tendrils moved gently around its head as if floating in water. "I am Elder Thelixus of the Valaran Exodus Fleet," the alien said. The words came through the ship's translator in a flat, computerized voice. "Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Eleanor stepped forward. "I am Captain Eleanor Wright of the United Nations spaceship Horizon. We are from Earth. We received your distress signal and have come to help." The alien's skin flickered rapidly between colors. The translator remained silent for a long moment, then said, "Earth? This planet is not in our database. We are from the Sol system, Eleanor explained. Our civilization is young. We have only recently developed technology that allows us to travel between stars. The Valoran's tendrils went completely still. You came here in response to our distress call? From outside our known space? Yes. There was another long pause. Then Elder Thelxus said something the translator didn't catch. The alien's skin turned a deep blue color. Elder Thelxus requests visual confirmation of your vessel, the translator finally said. Eleanor nodded to Peter, who sent the Valoran's images of the horizon. The Valoran's skin flickered rapidly again. This ship is primitive by our standards. You crossed vast distances in this? Our warp technology is new, Eleanor admitted, but it works. For now, Will added quietly. The Valoran's tendrils moved in a complex pattern. Your species must be unusual to attempt such a journey based on a distress call from an unknown civilization. We couldn't ignore someone who needed help, Eleanor said simply. Elder Thelxus seemed to consider this. I will confer with the council. Stand by. The screen went dark. Well, that could have gone worse, Kira said. Alan looked worried. They're surprised by us, maybe even suspicious. They probably wonder why a less advanced species would come all this way. They're afraid it's a trick, Nathan Boyd, the tactical officer, suggested. If I were them, I'd wonder what we really want. Hours passed with no word from the Valorans. The crew took turns resting and watching the alien fleet. The pulsar's light grew brighter. The radiation levels around the fleet rose steadily. They're running out of time, Kira said, looking at her readings, whether they accept our help or not. Finally, the screen lit up again. Elder Thelxus appeared, along with 3 other Valarans. All had tendrils and shimmering skin, but each had slightly different features. The council has agreed to meet with you, Thelxus said. A shuttle will be sent to bring 2 of your crew to our command ship. Eleanor nodded. Thank you. I will come, along with Dr. Rodriguez, our physicist. We will arrive in 1 hour, Thelxus said. Be prepared. When the screen went dark again, the bridge erupted in excited talk. You're actually going over there? Will asked, looking worried. Of course, Eleanor said. That's why we came. They could kill you, you know, Nathan warned. We know nothing about them. Eleanor smiled slightly. They could have killed us already if they wanted to. Besides, we're probably going to die here anyway if we can't help them escape the pulsar. Might as well try to make friends first. Hour later, Eleanor and Kira stood in the Horizon's airlock wearing their formal uniforms. Through the small window they could see the Valaran shuttle approaching. It was smaller than they expected, with smooth lines and no visible engines. Ready? Eleanor asked. Kira took a deep breath. Ready to be the first humans to set foot on an alien ship? I've been ready my whole life. The Valaran shuttle docked with a soft thud. The airlock cycled open, and the 2 women stepped forward to meet their alien hosts, not knowing what waited on the other side. Captain Eleanor Wright sat in her chair on the bridge of the UNSS Horizon. It was a normal day. The ship moved slowly through the outer solar system. Nothing exciting had happened in weeks. The crew did their jobs well, but everyone felt bored. Captain, there's something strange coming through, said Communications Officer Peter Hall. His eyes were wide as he adjusted his headset. I've never heard anything like this before. Eleanor stood up and walked to his station. Put it on speakers. A strange sound filled the bridge. It wasn't random noise. It had a pattern, like music, but not quite. The sound repeated over and over. What do you think it is? Eleanor asked. Not sure, Peter said. But it's not coming from Earth or any of our colonies. And it's not in any language we know. Eleanor thought for a moment. Get Dr. Mercer up here. If anyone can figure this out, it's him. Dr. Alan Mercer was the ship's xenolinguist. His job was to study and understand alien languages, even though humans had never met any aliens before. Many people thought his job was useless. Today might prove them wrong. Alan arrived on the bridge 10 minutes later. His eyes were still sleepy, and his hair was messy. He had been taking a nap when they called him. "What's so important?" he asked, and then he heard the sound. His tired face changed at once. He rushed to the communication station. "How long has this been coming in?" "About 30 minutes, Peter said. "Record everything," Alan said. "I need to analyze this." For the next 3 days, Alan barely slept. He worked in his small office, playing the strange signal over and over. He wrote notes and ran computer programs to find patterns in the sound. The rest of the crew waited and wondered. On the 4th day, Alan called Captain Wright to his office. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but he was smiling. "I figured it out," he said. "At least the basics. It's a language, Captain. Not human, but definitely a language." Eleanor felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean—" "Yes." Alan nodded. "This is a message from an alien species. They call themselves the Valarans." Eleanor sat down slowly. "What does the message say?" Alan's smile faded. "It's a call for help. They're in trouble. Serious trouble. From what I can tell, their ships, a whole fleet of them, are being pulled toward some kind of deadly star. A pulsar, I think. Their engines are failing and their shields won't last much longer." "How far away are they?" Eleanor asked. "Very far. Farther than humans have ever traveled. The message has probably been traveling for years." Eleanor thought about this. "So they might already be dead." "Maybe," Alan said. "But maybe not. The message says they have about 8 months before it's too late. The message itself is about 5 years old, so they might still have 3 years left. If we could get to them." "But we can't," Eleanor said. "Our fastest ships would take decades to reach that distance." Alan leaned forward. "What about the new warp drive? The one they've been testing?" Eleanor shook her head. "That's experimental. No one has tried to go that far with it. But it could work, right?" Alan pressed. "It could get us there in time?" Eleanor didn't answer right away. The warp drive was new technology. It bent space to move ships faster than light. But it was dangerous. No one knew what would happen if a ship tried to go too far with it. "I need to report this to command," she finally said. The next day, Eleanor sent the message to Earth. The United Nations Space Command called an emergency meeting. Leaders from all around Earth joined to discuss what to do. Many wanted to ignore the message. "It could be a trap," some said. "Even if it's real, why should we risk our people to help aliens we've never met?" others asked. But Admiral Sofia Garcia stood firm. "This is not about politics or fear," she told the assembly. "This is about doing what's right. If the Valarans die when we could have helped, what does that say about humanity? What kind of species do we want to be?" After 3 days of debate, they made their decision. The Horizon would be fitted with the experimental warp drive. Captain Wright and her crew would attempt to reach the Valaran fleet. Chief Engineer William Jackson supervised as workers installed the warp drive on the Horizon. He didn't look happy when Captain Wright came to check on progress. "I can't promise. This will work," he told her, "and even if it gets us there, it might not get us back." Eleanor nodded. "I know the risks. So does the crew. We all volunteered." "Why?" Will asked. "Why risk everything for aliens who might already be dead?" Eleanor looked out a nearby window at the stars. "Because someday we might need help too. And I hope whoever hears our call will be brave enough to answer." 2 weeks later, the Horizon was ready. The crew said goodbye to their families, not knowing if they would ever see them again. Some cried, others tried to be brave. All felt the weight of what they were about to do. Admiral Garcia came to see them off. She shook Eleanor's hand. "You're making history today, Captain. The first humans to attempt interstellar travel. The first to make contact with an alien species." "If we succeed," Eleanor said. "Even if you fail," Garcia replied. "You answered the call. That matters." The crew took their positions. The massive warp drive hummed at the back of the ship. No one knew exactly what would happen when they activated it. Eleanor sat in her captain's chair. She looked around at her crew. They were ready. They were afraid, but they were ready. Begin warp sequence, she ordered. The ship's computer counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The stars outside stretched into long lines. The ship shuddered. There was a flash of light that seemed to come from everywhere at once, and then the horizon vanished from our solar system, beginning the longest journey humans had ever attempted. They were on their way to answer a cry for help from across the stars, not knowing what they would find, or if they would ever return home. The Valoran engineers stared at Will Jackson's diagrams with their large black eyes. Their skin flickered through colors so quickly it was hard to follow. Zorix touched the holographic display, enlarging part of Will's design. This might work, he said finally. His translator made his voice sound surprised, but the calculations required would be immense. The timing would need to be perfect, and whoever stays outside the bubble would die, added another engineer. Her skin had turned a deep blue, which Eleanor had learned meant sadness. Will nodded. Yes, the radiation levels would be fatal within minutes. The meeting with the Valaran Council was tense. Elder Thelxus and the other leaders asked many questions about the warp bubble plan. They wanted to be sure it had a better chance than the shield plan. The shield would save perhaps 70% of our central fleet, Thelxus said. How many would your warp bubble save? If it works as we hope, Kira answered, nearly all of the central fleet. Maybe 95%. The council members looked at each other, their tendrils moving in those silent conversations. And the cost? Asked one member. 1 life, Will said quietly. Someone has to stay outside to sync the power cores. One of us? Asked another council member. No, Eleanor said firmly. One of my crew. The synchronization requires someone familiar. With warp technology, that's us. You would sacrifice one of your own? For us? Thelxus seemed shocked. If needed, yes, Eleanor said. That's why we came. To save as many of your people as possible. After the council approved the new plan, work began immediately. The 35 ships originally chosen as shields would now serve a different purpose. Their power cores would be modified to create a massive warp bubble around the central fleet. Kira worked with Zorix and his team to calculate the exact size and strength of the bubble needed. Nathan Boyd helped plan the positioning of each ship. Dr. Foster prepared medical treatments for anyone exposed to the increasing radiation. Will led the modification of the power cores, working around the clock. Human and Valaran engineers worked side by side, learning from each other despite the language barriers. Their technology is amazing, Will told Eleanor during a rare break. If we get home, the things we've learned here could advance Earth science by decades. When we get home, Eleanor corrected him. I haven't given up on that yet. But privately, Eleanor had begun to accept that the horizon might never return to Earth. The warp drive was badly damaged. Even if it could be repaired, using it again would be risky. And now they were planning to use their warp expertise to save the Valarans instead. It seemed a fair trade. The lives of 3 million aliens for the chance to go home. Eleanor thought her crew would agree. They had known the risks when they volunteered. As the work continued, the pulsar's deadly pull grew stronger. 2 more Valaran ships lost power and had to be evacuated quickly. The radiation levels rose daily, making work outside the ships more and more dangerous. 3 human crew members died when radiation shielding failed on one of the Valaran ships they were helping to modify. Communications officer Peter Hall and 2 security officers were caught in a sudden burst of radiation. By the time they were brought back to the horizon, Dr. Foster could do nothing to save them. Eleanor held a small funeral. The bodies were sent toward the nearest star, not the pulsar, but a healthy yellow star in the distance. The Valarans attended, standing silently with their tendrils perfectly still, a sign of deep respect. After the funeral, one of the council members approached. Eleanor, your people continue to work despite these losses, she said. Why? Eleanor thought for a moment. Because the job isn't finished. Because 3 lives lost is better than 3 million. Is that what you call courage? The council member asked. The continuing despite loss? I suppose so, Eleanor said. It's what humans do. We keep going. The council member's skin turned a soft gold color. We have lived so long in the safety of our planning. Every step of our journey was mapped out centuries ago. Perhaps we have forgotten how to face the unexpected. Work on the warp bubble plan resumed. With only days left before the pulsar's radiation would become too intense for anyone to survive, the modified power cores were ready. Now came the hardest part, deciding who would stay behind to synchronize them. Eleanor called her senior officers to her quarters. I won't order anyone to do this, she said. It has to be a volunteer. I'll do it, Will said immediately. It's my design. I know it best. No, Kira argued. You're needed to oversee the bubble formation. I should do it. With respect, Nathan added, I have the most experience with radiation exposure from my military service. It should be me. Eleanor listened as each officer made their case. They all had good reasons. They all were willing to sacrifice themselves. She felt proud of her crew. These humans so far from home, ready to die for aliens they had just met. But in the end, there was only one choice that made sense. I appreciate your courage, she told them. But it will be me. They protested. Of course. Will reminded her that captains traditionally went down with their ships, not sacrificed themselves while the ship survived. Nathan pointed out that she had the least technical expertise for the job. This isn't open for debate, Eleanor said firmly. As captain, I'm responsible for this mission. I'm responsible for all of you. I brought you here. And my last order is that you will get the Horizon and as many Valorans as possible safely away from that pulsar. The next day, as the final preparations were made, Eleanor visited each section of her ship. She spoke with every crew member, thanking them for their service. Some cried, others saluted. All understood what their captain had decided. Her last stop was the medical bay where Dr. Foster was preparing a special radiation treatment. This won't save you, he said bluntly, but it might give you an extra hour, maybe 2. That's all I need, Eleanor said. Just long enough to finish the job. There's something else, Daniel added, handing her a small device. Will and I have been working on this. It's an emergency pod, 1 person size. After you sync the cores, get to it. It has the strongest shielding we could build. Eleanor took the device. Will it work? Daniel shrugged. Probably not, but we had to try. Thank you, she said softly. On the Valoran command ship, Elder Thelxis was waiting. Her skin was a pale silver color that Eleanor had never seen before. Our people have monitored your discussions, Thelxis said. We know what you plan to do. Your translators pick up more than I thought, Eleanor said with a small smile. Captain Wright, I must ask, why you? Why not send one of your crew? Eleanor looked out a viewport at the pulsar in the distance. Its deadly light pulsed like an angry eye. Because that's what leadership means to humans, she said finally. We don't ask others to take risks we won't take ourselves. And because every member of my crew has someone waiting for them at home. Parents, children, partners, I have no one. Thelxis's tendrils moved slowly. You have us now, she said. When this is over, whether you survive or not, you will be remembered among the Valarans as long as our species exists. The final hours before the operation were a blur of activity. The modified ships were moved into position around the central fleet. The Horizon was docked with the Valoran command ship, ready to leave with them if the bubble worked. Eleanor put on a special suit designed to give her maximum protection from. The inside of the Valoran ship took Eleanor's breath away. The walls seemed alive, glowing with soft light that changed colors as they walked past. The air felt thick and rich, like breathing near an ocean. Everything was curved. No sharp corners or straight lines anywhere. 2 Valorans led them through long hallways. Eleanor and Kira tried not to stare at the aliens, but it was hard not to. The Valorans walked with a flowing grace, their tendrils moving gently around their heads. They wore simple robes that shifted colors to match their skin. Their whole civilization is on these ships, Kira whispered. Can you imagine? Their entire species traveling through space. They reached a large round room. In the center was a table shaped like a ring. Around it sat 7 Valorans, including Elder Thelxus. The humans were shown to empty seats. "Welcome to the council chamber," Elder Thelxus said through a small translator device. "We have many questions for you." For the next hour, the council asked about Earth, humans, and why they had come. Eleanor answered as honestly as she could. She explained how they had received the distress signal, how they had debated whether to come, and how they had decided they must try to help. "Even though you might never return to your home?" one council member asked. "Even then," Eleanor said, "we couldn't ignore your call." "Fascinating," another council member said. "Your species shows both intelligence and what I can only describe as an unusual moral framework." Kira leaned forward. "With respect, we didn't come here to be studied. We came to help. And from what we can see, you're running out of time." The Valaran's tendrils went still. Elder Thelxus's skin darkened. "Yes, the pulsar draws us closer each day. Our engines can no longer fight its pull. Our shields fail bit by bit as the radiation increases." "How many ships? How many of your people?" Eleanor asked. 217 ships, Thelxus answered. "Just over 3 million souls, all that remains of our civilization." "What happened to your homeworld?" Kira asked. The Valaran's skin all shifted to a deep purple. "Our star began to die," Thelxus said. "We had centuries of warning, but even that was not enough time to save everyone. These ships carried the chosen few, those who would ensure our species and culture survived. For 1,000 years we have traveled," another council member added, "looking for a new home. And now, to end like this," Eleanor nodded. "We need to see your technical data. Dr. Rodriguez is one of our best scientists. Maybe she can see something your people missed." The Valarans looked at each other. Their tendrils moved in patterns that seemed to suggest they were communicating without words. Finally, Thelxus spoke. "Our engineers have worked on this problem for decades. Your species has barely left its own solar system. What could you possibly see that we have not?" Kira's face flushed, but she kept her voice calm. "Sometimes fresh eyes help. And humans have one thing you might not. We evolved on a world with unpredictable natural disasters. We're good at finding solutions when time is running out." After more silent communication, Thelxus nodded. "Very well. You may speak with our engineers, but know this. We have tried everything we can think of. If you fail, do not feel shame. Some problems have no solution." The engineering section of the Valaran ship was even more impressive than the council chamber. Massive screens showed the status of every ship in the fleet. Valarans worked at stations that seemed to float in the air, manipulating holographic controls with elegant movements. Chief Engineer Zorix greeted them with the same caution the council had shown. His skin was a deep green, and his tendrils were shorter than the others they had seen. "I understand you believe you can solve our problem," he said. His translator made his voice sound doubtful. "We'd like to try," Kira said. For the next several hours, Zorix showed them the Valaran systems. Their technology was far beyond what humans had developed. Their ships were powered by something similar to fusion, but cleaner and more efficient. Their shields used principles that Kira had only seen in theoretical papers. But as they studied the problem, Kira began to see something. "You've been trying to save every ship at once," she said, "using the same approach for all of them." "Of course," Zorix said. "The fleet must stay together." Kira looked at Eleanor. "Captain, I think I need to bring Nathan in on this. He might see something I'm missing." They contacted the Horizon and had Nathan Boyd join them by video. As the ship's tactical officer, he had a different way of seeing problems. Nathan studied the Valaran data for 20 minutes, then asked, "Have you considered sacrificing some ships to save the others?" The Valaran's skin all turned gray at once. "Sacrifice? Explain," Zorix demanded. Nathan outlined his idea. The outer ships could be positioned to create a shield, blocking the worst of the pulsar's radiation. This would give the central ships time to alter course, But the outer ships would be destroyed, Zorik said. Yes, Nathan admitted, but they could be evacuated first. Move everyone to the central ships. Impossible, another engineer said. The central ships cannot hold so many. Then use only empty ships as shields, Kira suggested. Ships with no people, just equipment. Zorix's tendrils curled tightly. Each ship contains irreplaceable cultural artifacts, historical records, works of art, which are worth nothing if everyone dies, Eleanor said gently. Sometimes survival means letting go of pieces of the past. The Valorans were silent for a long time. Then Zorix said, "We must consult the council." Back in the council chamber, the debate was intense. The Valarans' skin changed colors rapidly as they argued. Some tendrils whipped around so fast they became blurs. "These ships are our heritage," one council member insisted. "To sacrifice even one is to lose part of who we are. If we do nothing, we lose everything," Elder Thelxus reminded them. "There must be another way," another council member said. "One that does not require such loss." "We've tried every other way," Zorix said. His skin had turned a dull brown. "For decades we have tried." The debate continued for hours. Eleanor and Kira watched, unable to understand most of what was said when the Valorans spoke among themselves too quickly for the translators to keep up. "They're not used to making these kinds of choices," Eleanor whispered. "They've planned everything for so long. The idea of improvising, of sacrifice, it's foreign to them." Finally, Elder Thelxus raised her hands and everyone fell silent. "We must vote," she said. "The human plan, or certain extinction." One by one, the council members touched a glowing orb in the center of the table. With each touch, the orb changed, color slightly. When the last member had voted, the orb turned a pale blue. "It is decided," Thelxus said. "We will implement the human plan." Over the next 2 days, the Valarans worked to select which ships would be sacrificed. The debates were painful. Each ship had value beyond measure to them. But in the end, 35 ships were chosen, the smallest ones, or those with cargo, that could be most easily moved. The evacuation began immediately. Valaran shuttles moved constantly between ships, transferring people and the most precious artifacts. The rest would be lost. Eleanor returned to the horizon to brief her crew. They would help position the sacrificial ships. The Valaran automated. Systems couldn't handle the complex maneuvers needed. "It will be dangerous," she told them. "The radiation levels are already high, and they'll get worse as we move closer to the pulsar. I won't order anyone to go." To her pride, every crew member volunteered. Will Jackson had been working on the radiation problem. "I've modified our shields," he told Eleanor. "They should give us a few more hours of protection. And Dr. Foster has come up with a treatment that might help against radiation exposure." Dr. Daniel Foster nodded. "It's based on Valaran medicine, actually. They've shared their medical database with us. Amazing stuff." The next day, the work began. Human pilots joined Valaran crews in shuttles, helping to tow the empty ships into position. The radiation made communication difficult. Systems failed regularly. Twice, teams had to be rescued when their shuttles lost power. But slowly, a shield began to form. The empty ships, positioned in a carefully calculated pattern, would block the worst of the pulsar's deadly energy. Eleanor worked alongside her crew, refusing to stay safe on the horizon while they risked their lives. As she helped secure a shuttle to a massive Valaran ship, she noticed a young Valaran watching her. "Why do they do this?" the young Valaran asked an older one nearby. "These humans? They don't know us. This isn't their fight." The older Valarans. Tendrils moved in what Eleanor had come to recognize as their equivalent of a shrug. "I do not understand their species, but I am grateful for them." As the shield took shape, Kira and Zorix calculated the exact moment when the Central Fleet should fire their engines. It would take all their remaining power, but if timed perfectly, it would push them just far enough away from the pulsar's deadly pull. "One chance," Zorix said. "We will have one chance to get this right." That night, as the humans rested on the horizon between shifts, Will Jackson made an unexpected discovery. "The Valaran power cores," he said, rushing into Eleanor's quarters. I think we can modify them to create a temporary warp bubble. A what? Eleanor asked, rubbing her tired eyes. A warp bubble, like what brought us here. It wouldn't last long, but it might protect the Central Fleet long enough to get clear of the pulsar. 2 months passed. The Valaran fleet, safely beyond the pull of the pulsar, had begun repairs. The warp bubble had worked better than anyone hoped. Nearly all the central ships had escaped undamaged. Only 3 had been lost, far fewer than the 35 that would have been sacrificed in the original plan. The Horizon remained docked with the Valaran command ship. Will Jackson had worked day and night trying to repair the warp drive. Progress was slow, but the Valarans helped with their advanced technology. We might actually make it home someday, Will told Olivia one day. Not soon, but someday. The crew had adjusted to life among the Valarans. They learned more of the alien language and taught the Valarans about Earth. Dr. Foster worked with Valaran doctors, sharing medical knowledge. Kira studied their advanced physics. Alan worked to create a more complete translation system. But no one had forgotten Eleanor Wright. Her sacrifice was honored by both humans and Valarans. The Valaran Council had named a hall after her in their central ship, a place where their young could learn about the human who had given her life for their people. The humans taught us that the true measure of advancement is not in technology, but in how far you will go to preserve life, even when that life is nothing like your own. Elder Thelxus often said when telling Eleanor's story. Today, Thelxus had called the Horizon's senior officers to the command ship. Something in her message had seemed urgent, but she hadn't explained why. Olivia, Will, Kira, Nathan, and Daniel gathered in a large room they hadn't seen before. It looked like some kind of medical facility. Elder Thelxus waited for them, her skin a bright gold color that they had learned meant excitement. "Thank you for coming," she said. "We have something to show you." She led them through the room to a sealed door at the back. Guards stood on either side. They had never seen guards on a Valaran ship before. 2 days ago, one of our patrol ships found something, Thelxus explained. A small object drifting in space. It was badly damaged by radiation, but our scanners detected a life sign inside. The humans looked at each other. Olivia felt her heart beat faster. "It can't be," Will whispered. Thelxus touched a panel beside the door. It slid open silently. Inside was a small room with a single bed. On it lay a human figure connected to various machines. The skin was pale, the hair gone. But the face was recognizable. "Eleanor," Daniel gasped, rushing forward. He checked the machines, reading the Valaran medical data with practiced ease. "She's alive. Barely, but alive." "How?" Kira asked, her voice breaking. "The radiation levels were lethal. Nothing could have survived that." "The pod you built for her was remarkable," Thelxus said. "It protected her from the worst of the radiation. And it seems your captain has what you call stubbornness in great supply." Daniel examined Eleanor more closely. "The radiation damage is extensive. Without the Valaran medical technology, she wouldn't have survived this long." "Can she recover?" Olivia asked. "I believe so," said a Valaran doctor who had joined them. "We have been studying human physiology since you arrived. With time and proper treatment, she may heal." Will moved to Eleanor's side and took her hand, gently. "You hear that, Captain? You're going to be okay. You just need to keep fighting a little longer." For the next several weeks, the humans took turns sitting with Eleanor. They talked to her, read to her, played music from Earth. The Valaran doctors said this might help her find her way back. The Valarans were fascinated by this behavior. They had never seen such devotion to an injured individual before. "In our culture, those who cannot recover are allowed to fade with dignity," one doctor explained. "This constant vigil, this refusal to accept what seems inevitable, it is very human." "That's right," Daniel agreed. "We don't give up on our people. Ever." 1 month later, Eleanor opened her eyes. She was confused at first, unable to speak. But day by day, her strength returned. Her hair began to grow back, white now instead of brown. Her damaged skin healed, leaving strange patterns like pale scars. When she was finally able to sit up and speak, the first thing she asked was, "Did it work? Is the fleet safe?" "Yes, Captain," Olivia told her with tears in her eyes. "Thanks to you, they're all safe." Eleanor smiled weakly. "Good. That's good." News of Eleanor's recovery spread through the Valaran fleet. Many came to see the human captain, who had saved them, though the doctors limited visitors to protect her strength. Elder Thelxus came often. She and Eleanor had long talks about their peoples, their cultures, their hopes for the future. "Your sacrifice has changed us," Thelxus told Eleanor one day. "For centuries, we have drifted through space, isolating ourselves, trusting only in our own plans and technologies. We had forgotten what it means to connect with others, to help and be helped." "Humans have a saying," Eleanor replied. "No man is an island." It means no one can truly exist alone. We all need each other. Thelxus's tendrils moved in what Eleanor now recognized as a smile. A wise saying. Perhaps it applies to species as well as individuals. 6 months after the escape from the pulsar, Eleanor was strong enough to return to the horizon. The crew welcomed her with cheers and tears. Many had believed they would never see their captain again. Will had good news. With Valaran help, the warp drive was almost repaired. Soon they would be able to attempt the journey back to Earth. "But there's more," he told Eleanor. "The Valarans have offered to come with us. Or at least, some of them." Elder Thelxus explained the plan. 5 Valaran ships would accompany the Horizon back to Earth. They would serve as ambassadors from their people, establishing formal relations with humanity. "Our journey to find a new home continues," Thelxus said. "But now we do not journey alone. Perhaps Earth's solar system has room for some of us. Perhaps we can help each other build something new." The day before the planned departure, the Valarans held a ceremony. All the ship captains gathered in a massive hall on the command ship. Eleanor sat beside Thelxus at the center. "Today we honor the bond between our peoples," Thelxus announced. "A bond forged in crisis, tempered by sacrifice, and strengthened by shared courage." She presented Eleanor with a small crystal that glowed with inner light. "This contains our history, our knowledge, our art, all that we are. We entrust it to humanity as a symbol of our friendship." Eleanor accepted the crystal carefully. "On behalf of Earth and all humans, I thank you. We will honor this trust." Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Eleanor found a quiet spot to look out at the stars. So much had changed since they had received that strange signal so many months ago. A simple call for help had led to humanity's first contact with alien life. Her crew had risked everything for strangers, and it had been worth it. Olivia found her there. "Credit for your thoughts, Captain?" Eleanor smiled. "I was thinking about why we answered their call, why we came all this way." "Because it was the right thing to do." "Yes, but it's more than that," Eleanor said. "We answered because that's who we are. Humans hear a cry for help and something in us has to respond. It's our greatest strength." "And our greatest weakness?" Olivia asked. Eleanor thought for a moment. "Maybe they're the same thing. We care too much, we risk too much. But that's how we've survived as a species, by helping each other through impossible situations." The next day, the Horizon and 5 Valaran ships activated their warp drives. In a flash of light, they vanished from the fleet, beginning the long journey to Earth. No one knew what would happen when they arrived. How would humanity react to the aliens? How would Earth change with access to Valaran technology? What new future might these two species build together? But Eleanor Wright wasn't worried. She had seen the best of both peoples. She had witnessed courage and compassion that transcended the differences between them. As the ship entered warp, Eleanor stood on the bridge, watching the stretched stars pass by. Beside her stood Elder Thelxus, her tendrils moving gently in wonder at the sight. "I never thought I would see this," Thelxus said. "A new beginning for both our peoples." "That's the thing about answering a call for help," Eleanor replied. "You never know where it might lead you." Years later, when schools on both Earth and the new Valaran colony taught the history of first contact, they always began with the same story. how a desperate message crossed the void between stars, and how humans, driven by something the Valorans had never understood before, had answered. In the Great Hall of the United Nations on Earth, a simple plaque was placed beside the entrance. On it were words spoken by Elder Thelxus at the signing of the first formal treaty between humans and Valorans. When we sent our call into the darkness, we never imagined who might answer. We never dreamed that a young species, new to the stars, would risk everything to save us. The humans taught us that the true measure of advancement is not in technology, but in how far you will go to preserve life, even when that life is nothing like your own. And below that, in smaller letters, was the response given by Captain Eleanor Wright. We answered because that's what humans do. Today, tomorrow, and for all the days to come when someone calls for help, we will answer.